There's a law that says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's called Newton's third law of motion. Now, interestingly, it not only applies to motion, it applies to a lot of things outside motion. For everything that happens in life, there's something behind it. For you to escape poverty, which is actually the reaction or the result, there's going to be something that you have to do, an action that you're going to have to carry out to achieve the results of you escaping poverty. And not only will you escape poverty if you carry out these rules and implement them, but these will also ensure that you're consistently financially successful. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 sacrifices that you actually must implement for you to escape poverty. So stick around right through to the very end so that you don't miss any of them, because they're all very important, and if you implement all of them, you increase your chances of financial freedom. The first thing you're going to have to sacrifice is your comfort. Now, we're talking about comfort in terms of mindset, because for a lot of people, their mindset is actually what makes them comfortable for them to remain where they are and not explore to reach further and get financial freedom. I mean, to escape poverty. You've heard the saying where a lot of people say that the richer someone is, the more problems they have. I mean, you'll see it, you'll hear it with a lot of people, and they're like, whoa, I don't want to be rich. Rich people have a lot of problems. I'm a poor person, but I'm much happier than a lot of rich people. And it could be true that the richer you are, the bigger your problems are, but that's simply in the absolute definition of the problems being big. But in terms of understanding how big the problems are, you'll understand that poorer people who earn little money actually have bigger problems. Let me put this into context for you. A poor person could have a problem. What's their problem? $100. And then a rich person will also have a problem. What's his problem? Let's say $1 million. I mean, he's in debt, and his debt is $1 million. A poor person is in debt of $100. But I'll tell you, the poor person will lose sleep. Some of them even end up committing suicide over $100 because someone is demanding them $100. They're like, what am I going to do in this world? Someone is demanding me $100. The rich person, despite the fact that they owe someone $1 million, will go to sleep very comfortably because they know there is something they can do to figure out how to actually pay back the money. In fact, in most circumstances, rich people will go into debts or a debt of $1 million when it's planned for. It's not like the poor person who borrows $100 because they must survive. You know, they have someone who is sick, who is in hospital, they must treat them, and they need to borrow $100. No, the poor person borrows to cater for necessities, and that's way more stress than rich people. I mean, the rich person will go and borrow $1 million to invest into a business. They'll borrow $10 million to invest into a business, and it's true, they'll have $5 million problems, but in all reality, the $5 million problem is actually a smaller problem than an $100 problem to a poor person. So you'll hear people saying that money is the root of all evil. Of course, that's not true. You know, even the Bible says that the love for money is the root of all evil. Money itself is not a problem. I mean, money is a tool. You can utilize money to get out of health problems. If you're sick, you need to be taken to hospital, you need money. If you want to have good food and be healthy, you need money. I mean, these days, healthy food is actually the more expensive food. Unhealthy food is the really cheap food. If you're broke, you have no money, you go to eat unhealthy food. If you need to travel, or I don't know, you need to go and do some basic things, you're going to need money. So money ideally is a tool to cater for the normal everyday things that we go through life, but also to help us enjoy life, you know, spend a bit more time enjoying life. So the problem then with money is if you're too greedy. I mean, it's about the love for too much money. Recently, I was reading a story about a Vietnamese woman who stole $44 billion. Now that's greed. I mean, the love for that money is crazy. How do you steal $44 billion? Now, just to help you understand, if you had $44 billion, if you wanted to spend that money over a span of 50 years, you'd have to spend at least $2.4 million every day for 50 years for you to spend $44 billion. Why on earth would you need $44 billion? I mean, some people cannot spend $1 million in their lifetime. You know, people who are conservative, they won't spend $1 million. If someone is spending $2.4 million every day. That's really crazy. Now that's greed, proper greed. It's the love for money. But money in itself is not a problem, and it's a tool. So you need to understand and have the mentality that money is actually a good thing that is to be utilized. And so if you change your mind and understand this and understand that money is something that will bring you to freedom, then you'll be able to get out of your comfort zone. You won't only sit there and be comfortable with being poor, because you'll understand that being poor actually causes problems. It makes your life suck. It just brings you a lot of pain. The second sacrifice is you must sacrifice your free time. Now, time is actually the most valuable asset available on earth. You know why? Because there's no more time being made. Once you spend time, you can never ever make back that time. I mean, money can always be made. Even if you lost, I don't know how much money, you can always make back that money. Everything else can ideally be found again in one way or another. But if you lose time, you can never get back the time. Your time on earth is only decreasing, never increasing. So you must make sure that you utilize your time as efficiently as possible. So then, how can you utilize your time? Number one, you can utilize your time to get knowledge. Now, if you're already on this YouTube channel and you're already watching this video, you already understand the importance of getting knowledge. Knowledge can propel you to far distances. I mean, really, really far. Spend time learning as much as you can about anything that you actually think can get you out of poverty. A lot of people will spend time on social media simply wasting their time doing things that are not valuable to them. But if you can just spend your time, for example, reading someone else's book, someone who has made it in life, someone who has learned a lot about life, and they're giving you their experience of life in a short book, then that's a very good utilization of your time. For example, I read Steve Jobs' biography, and for me to simply just sit down and in a book that I can read in maybe 5-6 hours, I can understand a big percentage of how the man thought, how he did his things, how he perceived of things. That's a big steal. I mean, the book, even if the book costs $100, of course it never costs $100, but even if it was to cost $100, I mean, I would pay for that. $100 for the knowledge and experience of someone for a lifetime, that's invaluable. So time should be utilized for you to learn as much as you can. I mean, spend time attending seminars, spend time on YouTube, spend as much time as possible reading and learning as much as you can. The other thing that you need to utilize your time for is to learn a skill. Skills are very important because skills can be monetized. Skills can be exchanged for money. It doesn't matter what kind of skill, whether it's an art skill, whether it's a sciences skill, as long as you can sell it to make money, you need to make sure that you utilize your time to do that. It could be learning guitar, just spend maybe 2-3 hours every day practicing that guitar. Do you know how many people actually make crazy amounts of money simply because they can play the guitar? It could be a skill, maybe operating a camera. A lot of people are paid millions, thousands of dollars simply to operate a camera. It could be to direct a movie, it could be to sing, it could be, to play soccer. It doesn't matter what skill it is. Dedicate your time to learn a skill, master it, become as good as you can at that skill. You can monetize it. And finally, you need to utilize your time to work. Yeah, you need to sacrifice time in order to work. Like I've said, a lot of people will waste their time on useless things. In order for you to work, you actually have to spend time. Some people would rather spend the day seated down, gambling and talking to friends, instead of going and hustling, doing some form of work. Any form of work is better than no work at all. That's what I always tell people. People come to me, for example, and tell me, hey, doctor, I don't have money, but I want to start a business. I want to start this kind of business. I want to invest in this kind of business. What do I do? I always tell them, get a job. It doesn't matter what kind of job. Even if it's cleaning toilets, even if it's cleaning the streets, any kind of job is better than no job at all. Once you start working, you get to appreciate the value of work. Also, you get to have some money which you then can utilize to invest in other businesses or to invest in any other form of investment for you to actually make money. So utilize your time to actually work. The third thing you're going to have to sacrifice is mediocrity. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people around the world have settled for being mediocre. That's not good enough. I mean, the biggest percentage of people on earth are not wealthy simply because they are okay with being mediocre. If you're being mediocre, what you need to understand is that there is people who are consistently putting in effort to get better than you and to be at the top. And so if for you your goal is to be mediocre and not to be better than other people, then you're going to be left behind. Before you know it, you're going to be at the end of the road. So you need to make sure that you sacrifice mediocrity. You need to aim for excellence. The world rewards excellence. I'll use Steve Jobs again as an example in this circumstance. I mean, think about the iPhone, for example, one of his very many inventions. The iPhone. He came up with the iPhone at a time when smartphones were mediocre. I mean, everyone had made a phone that looked a particular way. And he thought about a phone in another way, in another perspective. Now, of course, when he was working with these engineers and a lot of other people, they kept telling him that, this is too hard, this is too hard. But he never settled for mediocrity. Why? Because he believed that it's possible to actually become better than the rest of the people. It's possible for you to get to the very top. And honestly speaking, right now, a lot of people, despite the fact that a lot of other phones have caught up, and maybe some of them are even better than iPhones, he created a particular thought pattern amongst consumers that the iPhone is the best phone. And so a lot of people will go and buy it because they believe it's the best phone. Yet in reality, there could even be very many phones that are better than it at the moment. So you need to strive for excellence. Excellence distinguishes you from the rest of the group. What you need to understand is that generally in the world, everything is a competition. And so you must stand out. The world rewards those who stand out. Those who stand out can never be poor. That's what you need to understand. Even in the employment world, I mean, if you're working for someone, the person who is employing you rewards excellence. Everyone wants to keep the very best people. That's why we have audits at the end of maybe every year, performance reviews. Why? Because we want to get the very best and find a way of working on what is best. So again, sacrifice your mediocrity, work on excellence. If you're excellent, the world is going to reward you and you're going to have the very best results. The fourth thing you're going to have to sacrifice is self-gratification. Yes, it's very important. Of course, before you start working, especially when you're poor, there are particular things you've always wanted to get. I mean, when I was younger, there are things I always looked at and I told myself, I want to have this when I grow up. I want to have this kind of phone. I want to have this kind of car. I want to have this. And even right now that I do make quite an amount of money, there are still things I look at and I'm like, I want to have this. I want to have this. But you must learn to understand that you must sacrifice self-gratification. Do you remember the saying of short-term pain for long-term gain? That's what you need to keep at the back of your mind, yeah? So you want to have that very nice car. You want to have those very nice fancy clothes, Gucci, Adidas. That's all you want to wear. You want to have the beautiful, huge house. I mean, that $2 million house that you've always dreamt of. It's true, you can have those things, but you must sacrifice right now so that you get those things. Ideally, it's not like you're giving up on them. What you're doing is called delayed gratification. I mean, it's not completely denying yourself. You're simply delaying it so that you can enjoy it a little bit later on. So what might cross your mind or what you might be thinking right now is, what if I die? What if something happens to me and I never get to enjoy all these things that I want? Now, what you need to understand is that literally things do not satisfy. Now, I know that's crazy and you can't imagine it because you're thinking, then why would I be working? Why am I trying to get all this money? In all reality, things on earth do not satisfy. What satisfies is having a greater purpose, the reason as to why you're doing particular things. For example, if you're working and making money so that you can sustain your family, see your children happy, see your parents happy, those are the things that are going to satisfy you at the end of the day. Of course, it's good for you to be comfortable. So while you're providing for your family, ensuring that they have a good life, of course, you want to drive a nice car. But in itself, if the goal is to have a nice car, what you need to understand is that a nicer car will always be made. That's what you need to understand. I've experienced this personally. It's not something that's coming from far away. And every time I see something that I want to get, as I'm getting close to holding it like this, I see something further and that looks nicer. That's how they say the grass is always greener on the other side. When you can't get a hold of something, if it feels like it's out of your reach, it always looks nicer. When you get close to it, then the thing that again is now further is what looks nicer. So trying to get things and trying to satisfy yourself by simply getting things and getting things and getting things, in all reality, will never satisfy you. When you're on your deathbed, that's when you get to appreciate it. So the goal is that satisfaction and happiness in life is actually going to come from the purpose, the bigger purpose that you have, the things that you're working towards. So if you have a goal that you're then working towards, if you died or if you were on your deathbed while you were working towards that goal, you would be more satisfied than someone who drove the best cars but then they felt like there's something they still fail to achieve, because in all reality, even on their deathbed, they'll tell themselves, there is a nicer car that I could have driven. So you need to avoid the quick dopamine of having a nice car, having a nice house. I mean, as soon as you start living in that house, you then start noticing it's just like any other house, and it changes completely nothing about you. And then chase the bigger things. I mean, you want to be able to start a business that can then continuously provide for you and provide for other people. It will give you free time to rest. And then also, there are things that you must sacrifice fully 100% in terms of enjoyment if you're going to be successful, get out of poverty, and actually live happy for the rest of your life. Things like drugs and alcohol. These 100% you're going to have to get rid of. I mean, it's not delayed gratification. It's not like, let me leave the drugs right now, I'll get back to them later. Or no. It's proven from the most successful people on earth that for you to ascertain success and actually maintain it and find fulfillment in your life, you have to get rid of drugs and alcohol. These are going to be the quickest things that are going to drop you to the ground. The fifth thing you're going to have to sacrifice is your emotions. Now, the thing with emotions is that you must separate yourself from your emotions, because your emotions are your biggest enemy. That's what you need to understand. Your emotions, because a lot of time your emotions don't reason. I mean, your emotions come from the heart. It's about the feelings. It's not about the brain. It's not about the logical explanation of things, but simply how you feel. Now, you need to separate yourself from your emotions. And if you do this, then there are things that you're going to avoid. The first thing you're going to avoid is doing things to fit in. A lot of times, people do things to fit in, and this is the number one thing that keeps them in poverty. Because if you're doing particular things to fit in, then you're not chasing your goals. You're not chasing purpose. You're not trying to achieve particular things, but you're chasing either community goals or simply the goals of an individual. I mean, your closest friend, maybe you're all doctors, like I am a doctor. Your closest friends are all doctors, and they're all graduating, and then they have all gone back to school, they're specializing, they're getting their masters, and they're becoming this kind of specialist, and they all have this nice type of car. It's easy for you to think to yourself that, well, I'm also a doctor, I should also be doing things that way. But if, for example, I, Dr. Daniel, was not doing the things that I did, and I chose to do the things like my colleagues, I mean, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have left the medical profession. I wouldn't be on YouTube. I wouldn't be doing farming. I mean, I do farming. A lot of times I meet people and they're like, hey, Dr. Daniel, how are you? Where do you work? I'm like, well, I work in farming. They're like, what do you mean? You're a doctor? Which kind of doctor? Are you a vet doctor? I'm like, no, I'm a human doctor, but I left practicing. They're like, what? You're living the kind of thing that every one of us wants to run towards. Now, if I wanted to fit in, I would be like, whoa, everyone is running towards this. This is what I should be running towards also. I mean, I shouldn't be running away from it. But I chose to take the path that I believed was best for me and not follow the rest of my colleagues. And I understand that they will find their satisfactions in there, but my satisfaction is not there. And for me, my path of satisfaction is another way. So avoiding fitting in actually brought me financial freedom and got me out of poverty. The other thing is being pulled down by words. You have to avoid being pulled down by words. I mean, when you're doing particular things, when you're pushing to particular things, people will come and tell you things. They will come and tell you how what you're doing is wrong. They'll come and tell you how many other people before you have failed. They'll come and tell you everything bad that can happen. But yours is simply to not listen to them, to not take their words on the emotional level. You can listen to them and reason them out and see if they actually apply. But if it is simply on an emotional basis and, the people are simply making you feel bad, don't listen to them. And the third thing you'll need to avoid is stopping due to failures. When we encounter failures, which I personally don't call failures, I call them roadblocks along the way, it can be tempting for you to stop because you've encountered something that's resistant. I mean, something that's quite hard. But if you tell yourself that I'm not going to stop, I'm actually going to work through this, I'm going to work as hard as I can and go over it, then you'll ensure that you get successful and you get the results that you've been looking for. So yes, you've got to sacrifice your emotions 100% if you're going to have to get out of poverty. And then number 6, you've got to sacrifice your academic qualifications. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of people in the world, this is something that holds them prisoner. They're thinking to themselves, because I went to school, I got a master's degree in this, I have this kind of degree in this kind of profession, this is what I must do for me to get whatever I want in life. Guys, you need to understand that the education system in the world was made to hold you captive. I mean, it was made in the industrial era when everything was being made ideally to make humans robots, for you to be able, for example, to work on a particular production line so that you can get the same exact results every time. That's how it is. But currently things are changed. You don't need to work like a machine. You don't need to work like a robot. You must be creative. You must be able to come up with different things. Yeah, that's why you need to understand now that the education system has to play a different role. It's not like going to school is bad or a terrible thing. I mean, I went to school, but then I think about education in a different line. The whole purpose of education right now should be to teach you how to learn. It's not about the things that you're learning in specificity. No, it's about the mindset that you develop while you go through education. Yeah, you must understand how to learn. You need to understand that learning is a lifetime process. I mean, when you graduate from school, that's not the end of learning. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, and those are usually the ones that end up poor, they think that once they graduate from school, they have finished learning, and so the only thing they need to do is practice the things that they have learned in school. Unfortunately, the world does not reward that now. You must be willing to continuously keep learning, adapt to the changing trends in the world, and utilize the information and the knowledge that you keep acquiring each and every day to make yourself better, to understand and change things. So for me, for example, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a human doctor, and I studied through medical school. I mean, 6 years of training, harsh training. But the one thing that I learned from that is that if I can learn medicine, if I can learn how the human body works, if I can treat human beings, then really I can learn anything. I don't think anything is too hard for me. Yeah, that's the mentality I got out of it. So it doesn't matter what comes up, I'm willing to open up my mind and learn as much as I can, because I understand that learning never stops. So you've got to set yourself free, sacrifice those academic qualifications of yours. They might or they might not take you to the level of financial freedom that you require in your life. So be 100% willing to let them go in order for you to actually get financially free. And on this point itself, I've actually talked about how school trains you to be dumb and broke. I mean, it's crazy, but school ideally has trained us to be dumb and broke. So for you to be able to escape this captivity that school has actually put you in, you need to be able to think differently and actually see how school has brought all these pathetic things upon us. So I'll leave a link to a video about how school has taught you to be dumb and broke right here. Check it out. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, that way you never miss out on an upload. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.